Right. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming along and joining me on this journey today that we're going to take together over the next 10 minutes to try and answer this question. Should Far-UVC be deployed in healthcare? And we're going to explore this question with a hypothetical scenario that's based on evidence and fact, but ultimately you're going to be the key decision maker in this. And at the end of the presentation, your decision is going to be final. So as Bianca has said, if you could please go to menti.com and use the code that's on the screen here, or indeed you can scan the QR code with your mobile phone. I'm just going to give you 10 seconds to do this because we're flying through on time this morning, so I'm not going to leave too much time, and then we'll move on. Super. All right, okay, so here is the scenario. You're sitting drinking a cup of tea because, of course, that's what we do as clinical scientists. And in walks your chief executive. Admittedly, at first, you don't know it's the chief executive. You've never met them before. But once you've clarified all that up with them, they say to you, look, the flu season's just around the corner, and we are really, really concerned about infections in the hospital. Last winter was a total nightmare, and now the First Minister's right on my back, and we need to step up our game. We've been offered these Far-UVC lamps. They're free of charge, and apparently they kill all of the nasty bugs. It could be a real game changer for us. We could really turn things around in the hospital, but I'm just wondering if these Far-UVC gizmos are as effective as they claim. You're a scientist. What do you think I should do? Whatever you decide, we're going to go with, and no pressure, but this could seriously affect the health and safety of all of our patients and staff. Here's the information that the company have provided me with. So the company have said that really Far-UVC, it's a type of ultraviolet C light. Now, you might have heard of UVC before, but not like this. This is new, this is different. It's emissions at 222 nanometers, and it's germicidal, which means it kills viruses and it kills bacteria and kills all the dangerous stuff. It's not harmful to the skin and eyes, and it will work 24/7. There's no mercury in the lamps, so it's totally environmentally friendly. And it only produces a minimal amount of ozone as well. Germicidal technology has been around for well over 100 years. We've known about that for over 100 years. But traditional germicidal UV was harmful to humans. This new technology changes all of that. Fast-moving, emerging new technology that's really going to make a difference. And so, what's the answer? Your chief exec says, what do you do? And you get 10 seconds to make that decision. So please do vote on Menti. Are you going to accept the offer of the free Far-UVC lamps or not accept the offer? All right, let's see what the results say. Okay, so we are about 63% for not accepting and 35% for accepting. Now, I appreciate that. You maybe don't feel like you've got enough information to make that decision just now. And okay, possibly the company's not the most unbiased source of information in the first place. But luckily for us, Scotland has a couple of leading scientists working in this area, one of which happens to work in the NHS. Wouldn't you believe it? But so for argument's sake, in this hypothetical scenario, we're going to call this researcher Dr. Ivan Didi. And to be honest, he's a bit full of himself, to be honest, the type of scientist that might refer to himself in the third person. But he has actually done some research on Far-UVC. An example of that you can see on the left-hand side of this slide. This was a study done in a bioaerosol chamber in the University of Leeds. It's a room-sized chamber, and they aerosolize pathogen into the air continuously, so it reaches a steady state. And while still releasing that pathogen, they switch the lights on and see that it reduces the pathogen load by over 90%, which is equivalent to about 35 air changes per hour. Now, to put that into context for you, a normal room would have about 4 air changes per hour, and even a sort of portable filtration unit would just add up to about 15 air changes per hour, so dramatically different to any of the other technology that's out there. In the real world, the University of Columbia have just released a study where they were looking at an animal changing facility where they were cleaning out animal cages. There's loads of murine norovirus in that room, and when they switched on the lamps, they saw a 99.8% reduction. So the independent evidence is pretty, shows pretty good. So your chief exec thinks, well, you've got the extra information now, so what's it to be? And again, you only get the 10 seconds in order to make that decision. Are you going to accept now, knowing what you know about how effective the technology is, or are you still not going to accept that offer? Okay, see the results. So we've shifted. So it's a bit of a shift towards maybe sort of 50-50 and accept, don't accept. So there's obviously still some hesitation out there, which is understandable. You know, we didn't talk about, you know, these technologies going to be used in occupied spaces. So we didn't talk about safety. And there's a lot of baggage around ultraviolet light and stuff like that as well. So if we talk a little bit about safety, so unfortunately, Dr. Deedy's done a few tests on the safety of these lamps as well, tested these lamps on himself. And at really high doses of exposure to these lamps, it is possible to induce a reaction in the skin. You get a very slight yellowing, but not this sort of sunburn reaction that you would normally expect with exposure to ultraviolet light. And again, these are at really high doses, hundreds of times more than would be allowed in normal use. And as you can see from the image in the bottom left-hand side of the screen, there's very minimal DNA damage as well. So you'll see these just little dark spots at the top of the epidermis, just below the stratum corneum. Stratum corneum is all the dead cells in the skin. So that damage is just at the top there. And actually, it's thousands of times less damage than you would get from just 10 minutes being outside. And it's been backed up by the modelling that Dr. Deedy's been involved with, where, again, we find that 99.9% of this far UVC light gets absorbed in the dead skin cells at the very top of the skin. So very, very small amount gets through, and it doesn't get anywhere near the stem cells, which are in the basal layer here of the skin. So it doesn't reach those critical stem cells. Very similar picture for the eye as well. The far UVC just doesn't penetrate far enough, and the eye's protected by the tear layer. So what now? Are you convinced? We'll start the countdown. You get 10 seconds to decide. What about now? Are you going to accept this offer? You've seen about safety, so you know that they're safe for the skin and the eyes, and you've seen about efficacy as well. All right, let's reveal the answers. Okay, so obviously that quick run through of safety wasn't very convincing on my part, or maybe you still are just a bit unsure because it seems like I'm just telling you about all the benefits of this technology and not about any of the downsides. Now, there's one potential downside that we have kind of come across. So that's the fact that the photons from the Far-UVC, they have enough energy that they can actually split oxygen molecules in the air, so separating O2 into single oxygen atoms. And those oxygen atoms can then meet other oxygen molecules to form ozone. Now, we know ozone is a health hazard. In addition, it's also very reactive, so it can react with other chemicals in the area and the environment, and that can go on to make potentially more dangerous compounds as well. However, the ozone that is produced is very small, and it does depend on the amount of lamps which are in the room. Having said that, there is a little bit of evidence that shows even a small amount of ozone can be hazardous to health. So whether or not the hazard to health that the ozone provides versus the number of lives that these far UVC lamps could potentially save from reducing disease transmission, that depends on a number of different factors. But one estimate suggests that overall UV, germicide or UV, will have an overall positive effect. You, however, still have to ask yourself the ethical question of, should you introduce a technology that you know will potentially cause harm, even if you think that benefit will outweigh the harm? So this is now the final question, the final chance for you to vote on this. Indoor pollution might be an issue, but actually also people are dying from infections caught in the hospital right now. What are you going to do? 2 seconds to decide. All right, let's see the results. Okay, clearly my argument has not worked and have not been able to convince you. Over 58% of you have decided that you're not going to accept this technology, which is fine. It's reasonable enough. Now, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but we suddenly discover come the winter time, in this hypothetical example, that a new influenza strain has absolutely swept the globe. Came out of Glasgow, nicknamed Influigi 23. For those of you that decided not to install the lamps, you're too late, I'm afraid. everyone in your hospital has caught it. They've got all the symptoms that you can see here on the slide. Now, I could easily have said also at this point, actually, that there was no further pandemic, and that 80 years down the line, scientists have found that these lamps cause respiratory or cardiac health problems. The point really is not that there is no right or wrong answer to the question that I was posing. And in reality, only with hindsight will we determine whether or not we made the right decision. The point really is that we can't make decisions unless we have information available to us at the time. And so we need more high quality information so that we can make better informed decisions, and so that others can make better informed decisions as well. And it's only the research that's going to provide that information, and only if you then communicate that research as well. And in the NHS, we are perfectly placed to do the type of research, that applied research, that will then go on to directly affect other people and affect their lives. So the message really is not about the question, but it's about please do the research, please do the communication, and thank you for listening.